Hello, welcome to our presentation on conservation education in developing countries. We chose to do conservation education in developing countries because we feel it provides the opportunities for children to learn about the natural resources available to them and how to protect them. And by having children protect the natural resources, they make sure that there are resources for their children and their grandchildren beyond. In the last flight of the Scarlet Macaw, we saw that Sharon Mottola invested many hours and dollars into the conservation education of children. In the book, it was said when she wasn't hanging out with the animals, she was leading groups of school children through the zoo, opening the eyes of an entire nation to the marvels around them.
Conservation education helps people of any age understand and appreciate the natural resources in their country and the world. Conservation education teaches how to conserve resources, how to use resources wisely, how resources and ecosystems affect each other, how to understand ecological problems through critical thinking. And most importantly, conservation education encourages people to act on their own to conserve resources by using them responsibly. The Belize Zoo established an education department in 1986 with the goals to heighten awareness and increase appreciation of the natural world, promote the recognition and understanding of Belize's unique ecosystems and diverse wildlife, and instill sound, knowledgeable, positive attitudes and values that will aid in the preservation of Belize's natural resources. There are 10,000 annual participants in the Belize Zoo education programs. Teacher workshops, which take place in the summer, help teachers understand the information found in the environmental education manuals created by the Belize Ministry of Education. There are on-site education programs, otherwise known as school visits, that are available for primary and high school students from all over Belize. Internship opportunities are also available, and there's a conservation camp that's offered in July to children from the ages of 12 to 17. Sharon Mottola makes ambassadors out of her animals who represent important stories about their kind. She has created 4 children's books that are used in many Belize schools. Birthdays are celebrated for animals that get children in schools coming from all over Belize to celebrate and learn together. An experiment was conducted at a southern zoo in the city of Cali to determine which conservation education strategies help children learn the most. The experiment divided up students from 32 fourth grade classes and had them attend one of 4 experimental treatments. The students each completed a questionnaire before and after their exposures to a zoo workshop made for their regular teachers and followed by a visit to the zoo, a zoo visit preceded by a visual aid, a zoo visit only, or a control group. The experiment found that the teacher workshop followed by a visit to the zoo was the best for learning. The zoo trip alone did not help children get enough educational information they need, and children who watched the visual aid had no increase in knowledge or appreciation for wildlife. The results of this study encouraged the development of education programs that involve teacher preparation and hands-on activities.
Every country has a unique treasure, its own natural resources. Teaching children in developing countries how to recognize, appreciate, and care for this treasure will help ensure that future generations will be able to enjoy these resources as well. In 1928, the United States began establishing national and state parks, beginning with Grand Teton National Park. The initial focus was to ensure that patrons saw these parks as places of ultimate recreation and relaxation. Over time, the goal was expanded to include educating the public on ways to conserve the areas they enjoyed so much. Soon, school programs were developed to teach children the importance of caring for them. Over time, developing countries began to recognize a need for similar action, and turned to the U.S. for guidance. These countries possess some of the most abundant and beautiful natural resources. However, the people who live in them had never had the tools they need to care for them. Our parks were used as models, and soon many smaller countries were founding their own national parks with the same goals in mind, protecting their national resources and educating the population with regard to how and why this was so important. In 1985, a school program was developed for Kinabalu Park in Malaysian Borneo. This park surrounds the tallest mountain in Asia and contains a diverse population of wildlife. For example, it's home to clouded leopards, orangutans, and nearly 1,500 species of orchids. The planning stages involved key issues, such as cultivating an interest in nature and the environment as a whole, informing students of reasons for the existence of the park and the importance of caring for and protecting it, as well as other natural resources. Implementing activities within the park for visitors in order to teach them about the many species of plants and animals found in the park. And lastly, developing programs that could be incorporated into the school curriculum to reinforce these new ideas. Over time, the park was able to provide such facilities as an auditorium for presentations, a collection of hands-on gardens for kids to actively participate in the process of growing things, and a laboratory in which students could interact with botanists and see science in action. Activities such as games and nature walks were added to make learning fun. The effectiveness of these programs was simply measured by the students' ability to list the benefits of the park, to speak about key conservation ideas and how they pertain to their environment, to be able to identify wildlife found in the park, and finally, there was the hope that students would bring their interests home and share what they'd learned with friends and family to spread the knowledge further into the community. Once students were able to accomplish these goals, they would possess the skills and information needed to help ensure that future generations would be able to enjoy these resources for years to come.
Protecting the natural resources of our earth is imperative because we need these natural resources for generations to come. The best way to preserve our natural resources is to teach the children and people of all ages to conserve resources by using them wisely. And there's many great examples like the Bolisug, but it's up to the individual people to care enough to be a part of this movement. Belize is only one very small country in the entire world who needs protection of their natural resources, and conservation education is the first step in protecting and conserving our natural resources.
So in conclusion, when you look at the information in our presentation on conservation education, natural resources, and how to preserve them, you cannot help but see the benefits of a conservation education program in all countries, not just developing countries. In The Scarlet Macabre, Bruce Barcott is talking about how we as adults know not to take too much. And he says, partly it's something we learn as kids. Long-term benefit is better than short-term gain. It's something we know intellectually, but it's hard to resist the impulse. It's a form of altruism. It's saying, I won't take this even though I could, even though I want to, because I want others to share in its glory. It's something we try to teach children, not to take and destroy by taking, but to let things be. And that's the main goal behind conservation education, is to teach children all of these things so that the resources are there for the future generations. And we all have natural resources, all countries do, that we need to keep around for use in our daily lives. And children who are educated about the resources we have and how to protect them and what they're used for and how to make sure that we have them in the future will be the best advocates for a healthy future. And they can even be an advocate to their family in order to bring them around to the same thinking. Thank you for listening to our presentation today. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a little bit about conservation education in developing countries and how it is affecting their natural resources.